He's a complete pathological liar.
Let's be honest. There are outsiders coming into communities, stealing and moving jobs away, and making life harder for people living there. And they have names: Donald Trump and J.D. Vance.
Complete liar. Lied about being in Tiananmen Square. Lied about being a head coach of a football team.
Because this started, and I love this story, as a young prosecutor. Kamala Harris talked about going in that courtroom for the first time.
Pathological liars. People that are habitual liars. They just lie all the time about everything. Yeah. Oh, you didn't deploy for war. You didn't. Why are you saying you deployed at war? The weapons you used in war? No. You were in war.
I plan on waking up on November 6th with Madam President.
I want to be clear. You won't be waking up together.
No, you weren't a head coach. You were the water boy. The f*** are you talking about?
I thought some of that was weird.
He's just a liar.
Walz says Democrats hate success.
We as Democrats, we want people to pay their fair share, but why are we against people being successful like that? We can't be. Why are we against? We should talk about businesses. Not all businesses exploit their workers, and we get ourselves stuck in that.
Oh, well,
and I think we lose them.
Get a room. Oh, wait, they weren't in a room. Vince.
This is the guy that was rooting against Tesla stock.
Yeah, exactly.
The same guy.
No, it's amazing.
Something unbelievable just happened live on air, and no one saw it coming. Joe Rogan blinked twice. Greg Gutfeld nearly spit out his drink, and Tim Walz, well, he's probably still trying to catch up. This wasn't just a debate. It was a complete wipeout. What exactly did Walz say that made both of them react at the same time? And why is the internet going crazy about it right now? Get ready, because this political moment just turned into a full-on roast.
Oh, Tim Walz is out there talking again.
Did you say he could fight any Trump supporter?
Yeah, he says he kicked and they're scared of him because he could fix a truck. Like they're threatened by his masculinity. I know how to fix a truck. That's what he said. I'm like, do you? I bet you don't.
The lady doth protest too much.
I bet you don't.
I fear.
I bet if I bring a broken truck to you and a bag of tools.
That was Kamala's VP, Tim Walz, is being accused of lying about his rank, which is called stolen valor. But in Walz's defense in Minneapolis, stealing is legal.
What happens when Joe Rogan and Greg Gutfeld get into a heated conversation about lockdowns, mandates, and political spin? You end up with a governor scrambling faster than his own press team can react. It starts off slow. Rogan raises an eyebrow. Gutfeld leans forward. And somewhere in Minnesota, Tim Walz's team is probably wondering how to disappear from the internet. This wasn't just criticism. It felt more like a two-man comedy horror show. And right in the middle of it all was a guy who turned leadership into an Olympic-level sport of changing his stance.
Walz continues to be criticized for embellishing his rank in service. After it came out over the weekend, he once claimed to be an official bikini inspector. Walz's direct superior in the National Guard says Walz knew his unit was about to deploy to Iraq and went behind the back of his superior officer to resign. When reached for comment, Walz yelled, "Hey, look over there," and then ran away.
You haven't seen that? No. The video of him taking down the Minnesota flag and he replaced it with the new flag that looks a lot like the Somali flag. Minnesota has a huge population of Somalis in it.
Oh, wait a minute.
So he gets the flag, picks it up, moves it out of the way, and replaces it. Look at this.
There, that's better.
Why is that better?
First, let's talk about the man, the myth, the headline himself. Tim Walz, the governor with a track record almost as messy as his pandemic playbook. Once a mild-mannered high school teacher turned political hopeful, he stepped into office with a smile, some Midwestern charm, and a pocket full of data-driven plans. But that plan didn't just stumble. It seemed to go up in flames. One minute he was following the science, and the next he looked like he was making it up on the fly, like a jazz musician running on 3 espressos and no sleep.
Kennedy, I like it. Like, what a better way to show their opposition to successful people than making him VP. He's the best example of failing up.
Yeah, and he didn't even do good at failing up because he helped tank the ticket and she lost the race because it showed, Tim Walz is the best example for why Kamala Harris has the worst political instincts in the Democrat Party, which is, it's a low bar, but...
Before all the chaos, he came across like that friendly, easygoing neighbor, the one who waves while accidentally overwatering his lawn. But when COVID hit, it felt like he tossed the entire rule book into a blender and hit puree. Gyms were locked down, churches were closed, Corner cafes were shut. But wait, mass protests? Totally fine. Apparently, it sometimes looked like the virus took a smoke break whenever a political message was involved.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Well, welcome to the Capitol. It's great that you're all. Sir, you're welcome to come. Let me finish. Let me finish and vote.
Hey, sir, he doesn't have fucking votes, sir. Shut your.
This was a man who used emergency powers like Thanos with a PowerPoint. Every time people asked when it would end, he reached for another executive order like he was collecting Infinity Stones. And those mask rules, what a ride. Masks on, masks off, masks optional, masks acquired indoors unless you're standing still, singing softly, and wearing Crocs. He didn't make guidelines, he made riddles. That's when Joe Rogan stepped in, watching from a distance like someone who just smelled something strange in the fridge. Joe has never been a fan of government overreach or politicians acting like they're the only ones with Wi-Fi and Google. Thick, why were playgrounds wrapped in yellow tape while liquor stores stayed open like sacred temples? Watching Rogan break it all down felt like watching a bear carefully peel a banana before smashing it to pieces.
He's 100% right with Tim Walz.
I know I'm doing something right when the Fox News crowd is all pitching at me like crazy. Like, I'm loving it.
That guy was almost the vice president of the United States.
Elon Musk was crying last week. Tim is being mean to me, basically, you know, like, yeah.
I'm sure you've seen that thing where it shows Obama saying, I need a vice president that's dumber than me.
He may or may not have cognitive decline problems at his age, but at her age, she's just dumb.
Yeah, Biden and
I think
Biden
I was saying that on your...
And just when things couldn't get worse for Walz, Greg Gutfeld stepped in. Fueled by sarcasm and probably a splash of energy drink, where Rogan pointed out the contradictions, Gutfeld painted them in clown makeup and dragged them straight into the spotlight. His jabs were so sharp you could almost hear political consultants groaning in the background. Gutfeld didn't frame Walz as a leader in a crisis. He made him look like someone who saw a fire alarm and tried to put it out with confetti. He mocked the strange rules, like banning indoor dining but allowing outdoor igloos with windows. The guidelines changed more often than his haircut, and small businesses were told to hang in there right before new restrictions dropped midweek, like a bad surprise. By the time he was done, it all sounded like something written by a confused intern with a magic 8-ball.
Hack at Politico writes this piece on the body language from the debate, claiming that it speaks volumes. Yeah, it says that Walz lost, but one of them at Politico says it's like Walz's wide eyes showed his passion and emotional intensity. Can we show that? There is his wide eyes.
Rogan couldn't stay quiet. He had to speak up. He pointed out how the working class took the hardest hit. Barbers, mechanics, personal trainers, anyone who couldn't just switch to Zoom overnight. Meanwhile, Walz and his team carried on, perfectly framed on every virtual call. And don't even get started on the remote learning mess. Rogan went off about how kids were thrown into digital chaos while politicians' children moved through private schools like nothing had changed. Gutfeld turned the whole thing into a comedy bit, imagining Walz with the Wheel of Fortune labeled mandate. Mask up, blame the feds, or pretend everything's fine. Every morning he spins it with a sip of kombucha. This wasn't some wild theory. It was Walz's own record playing on repeat, sounding more confusing each time. And just in case anyone thought it ended with COVID, Gutfeld brought up the unrest after George Floyd, businesses burning, cities under strain, and leadership nowhere to be seen.
Have you ever seen that video?
No.
This is what people love about Donald Trump. The fact that he would say this.
But unfortunately, Governor Walz isn't here himself, but don't worry, he'll say that he was. He's going to say he was. I used to think the Democrats were crazy for saying that men have period, but then I met Tim Walz.
It's hard to even bring him up. He has a resting snitch face. You know? I mean, he forfeited his man card during COVID and the riots. And you're right. And also, at that diner, of course, he left early.
Walz spent more time trying to figure out who was in charge than actually leading. It felt like a never-ending game of hide and seek with accountability. Rogan came in loaded with the facts: crime rates, property damage, economic fallout, while Gutfeld delivered the punchlines. Together, they turned a policy meltdown into a comedy roast you couldn't look away from. Gutfeld treated it like government cosplay. Walz dressed like a leader, but acted more like a substitute teacher who had lost both the lesson plan and the class. And the real tragedy, the people paid the price. Walz became the cautionary tale in Rogan's critiques and the satire Gutfeld crafted. When your pandemic policies turn into punchlines for a UFC commentator and a late-night libertarian armed with a whiteboard, maybe it's time to reread your own executive orders before signing the next one.
Odd greeting, the man of the hour. Tim Walz brings us our second video of the day, and he's got a very weird way of greeting his wife of 30 years. Roll it. I want to see this in slow motion. You'll see Walz extends his hand to his wife. She grabs it. They shake. He pulls her close and then goes in for that non-friction hug, all the while still shaking her hand. I wish there was a word to describe that. Oh, yeah, weird.
That's when Joe Rogan officially stepped into the ring, not with a suit or a script, but with headphones and enough frustration to light up the Texas power grid. You could feel the tension before he even spoke. While Tim Walz was busy finding new ways to waffle, Rogan was watching the whole circus unfold in real time. His nonsense radar was completely off the charts. Rogan didn't just point out the hypocrisy, he blasted it through a megaphone. Mom and pop shops were getting fined, shut down, or buried under piles of red tape, while big corporations strolled through the lockdowns like VIP guests at a pandemic gala. It didn't look like science or fairness anymore. It looked like a rigged game where the rules changed depending on who had the biggest wallet or the most connected lobbyist.
Getting scary close to people justifying totalitarian measures.
I think we need to push back on this.
Tim Walz in the campaign trail was literally saying free speech doesn't include hate speech and misinformation.
There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Hey man, you. Because everything that we called misinformation just a few years ago, it's on the front page of the New York Times.
On his podcast, Greg Gutfeld ripped the whole thing apart with a dose of blunt, plain common sense that made listeners stop and think, wait, what exactly was that about? In one episode, he sliced through performative politics like someone carving up a roast chicken. It may look polished on camera, but in real life it makes almost no sense. Tim Walz and his policies became perfect examples of that confusion. Take the capacity rules Minnesota rolled out. The more you thought about them, the stranger they sounded. You could eat indoors, but you couldn't sit at the bar. You could dine inside, but not after 10 p.m., because apparently that's when the virus decided to clock in for its shift. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan came in with commentary that hit just as hard. It felt like a full mic drop moment of frustrated honesty. He even mocked the chaos, acting it out like a comedian trapped inside a public health nightmare. First it's safe, then it's dangerous. Actually, wait, follow the science, except the science just changed 5 minutes ago after someone posted a tweet. You didn't know whether to laugh or scream at the absurdity of it all, but Rogan somehow made sure you ended up doing both.
Amazing how they operate one way when they're running, and then when they lose and get humiliated, all of a sudden they have these solutions, and they're all the things they're telling you to do. Like, why are you trying to trash one of the most successful companies in the world, you moron?
And they never did that because they all used to love Trump when Trump was giving them money.
Yeah.
Then Trump became like Rodney Dangerfield in Caddyshack.
Yeah.
He crashed their party, showed up at the White House, and he was just like, hey, you know what? We should put like a casino over there, an MMA ring over there.
Just as Tim Walz's approval ratings were tanking, Greg Gutfeld swooped in, smirk in place and sarcasm fully loaded. If Joe Rogan was the frustrated everyman asking the hard questions, Gutfeld was the sharp-tongued uncle at Thanksgiving who ruins dessert with brutal honesty and charts. His goal wasn't debate, it was total demolition through sarcasm. And the best part, Walz didn't even need a punchline. He was the punchline. Gutfeld zeroed in on his obsession with emergency powers, mocking him like someone obsessed with picking fonts and perfecting words. He's not saving lives, he's fixated on Times New Roman. It wasn't leadership, it was bad theater, the kind you walk out of halfway through demanding a refund. Gutfeld didn't just point it out, he rewrote the whole performance with enough satire to send Walz's communications team into full-blown panic mode.
They've released analyses of election data out of Clark County, Nevada, that show some pretty convincing evidence of election tampering. So what can we do to make sure, A, that the midterms actually happen, and B, that they're free of fraud?
Yeah, this one's a core. We saw just recently Donald Trump's executive order to make it more difficult, specifically to women, trying to make it more difficult for women to be able to vote. We see one of the first things they do is try and restrict the vote.
Wait, so Trump is making it more difficult for women to vote? How so? Math problems?
Then came the knockout critique. Walz wasn't leading, he was pretending to. A blue state bureaucrat playing dress-up while everyday Minnesotans struggled to get by. One sniffle from Fushi, and Walz slammed the state into lockdown like he just received the doomsday alert. There was no balance, just pure panic mode. Gutfeld delivered the final blow. Somehow, Walz lost trust on both sides. Liberals thought he was weak, and conservatives thought he was completely out of touch. That's not balance. That's failure. Game over. Public trust? Obliterated. Then came the side-by-side comparisons. Walz fumbling through press briefings while Rogan squinted like he was watching someone explain cryptocurrency to a toaster. Gutfeld jumped in. Makes sense if you've been brewing hand sanitizer and scrolling the internet all day. The audience didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or mail Walz a copy of Leadership for Dummies.
Whose expertise does he rely upon for his Midwestern takes? Here's Minnesota State Rep Leigh Finke, who wants to train more children's doctors on sex change surgery and puberty blockers. He sponsored the Trans Refuge Bill, which Walz signed, which makes Minnesota a sanctuary state for such butchery.
If you promise trans refuge, then we need to increase the number of people who are offering gender-affirming care. So we have some money, hopefully we can pass, to help entice people to move from those states who also practice gender-affirming care. We want to do internship programs and fellowship programs with Children's Minnesota and other places where people can learn gender-affirming care.
Wow. It's now available for babysitting.
The takedown wasn't loud. It was surgical. Every contradiction exposed. Every absurd role turned into a punchline. What was left? A governor standing amid the wreckage of his own decisions, wondering why the applause had vanished. But this wasn't just about Tim Walz. It was about the collapse of public trust. What happens when leaders pretend to lead, then blame the chaos on the people they ignored? Minnesota's economy took hits. Small businesses shuttered. Polls tanked. Approval ratings sank like a leaky canoe. Even loyal supporters began asking, wait, we voted for this? Other governors owned their mistakes. Walz stayed in denial. Rogan, never one for subtlety, drove the final nail into his political coffin. The message wasn't don't lead, it was stop pretending you are. And just like that, a governor's credibility got body slammed by a podcast host and a Fox News comedian. Not with rage, not with hate, but with facts, laughter, and the kind of clarity that only comes when the fog of fake leadership finally lifts.